Καλησπέρα σας. Ήδη στον τίτλο είδατε ότι θα μιλήσουμε για το θαύμα του Ισραήλ. Γι' αυτό για το οποίο μιλά όλος ο κόσμος. Ο πρέσβης του Ισραήλ στην Ελλάδα, ο κύριος Amrani, είναι μαζί μας. Mr. Ambassador, I'm honored to welcome you to the 6th Delphi's Forum. My first question is the simplest. What synthesizes the success story of Israel during that rough period?
I think the most important success is the efforts taken by the government, by the Prime Minister, to vaccinate the entire Israeli population as fast as possible. I think that the number of vaccination daily, and right now more than 60% of all Israelis are vaccinated, and if you take out people younger than 12, youngsters, you have 75% of Israeli population already vaccinated by 2 shots, not 1, 2. And the government is preempting different possible scenarios, being ready for a booster. We don't know yet if it will need 6 months or 9 months or a year for the first 2 vaccinations to be in effect. So we already got into contracts with the pharma companies, mostly with Pfizer, to supply Israel with the necessary vaccines for the 3rd shot. The other success is the immediate return of life and economic return to normality. Before Corona, before March 2020, Israel economy was high employment, 3.6%, maybe around 4% growth. Of course, during the Corona, the economy shrank. You can see that within the month and a half since the Israeli economy came back to life, you see the return of normal economic activity. More taxes are being raised. Unemployment is going down fast, growth is going fast, and the deficit in the budget, which was huge during the last year, is immediately shrinking.
How did you get the balance to combine the discipline of the society and the effectiveness of the health care? It's a difficult combination.
It is a difficult combination once we have to remember the Corona fatigue, which is not unique only for Israel. I think that you see it here in Greece as well. A year plus of restrictions, a year plus of no movement or no freedom of movement, a year plus of social distancing, not meeting relatives, not being able to travel, not being able to conduct your usual way of life, has taken its toll. If we had seen high level of discipline and cooperation by the Israeli population the first wave, it got less and less the second and the third wave. So we were lucky that the pharma industry came late last year, around November, December, with the vaccination. And us being able to vaccinate the population mostly by January till March, it allowed us to maintain a certain social cohesion. Otherwise, this has been a dangerous issue for any government to tackle. The cooperation of public opinion and the understanding of people that the measures are necessary.
You don't have any crowd out to demonstrate or...
We had demonstration during that time on political issues, yes or no government, and don't forget that we had another round of elections, I think last March. This was still at the height of Corona, and maintaining normal way of life, maintaining democracy in a time of Corona and restrictions. The Israeli Supreme Court, the Israeli Attorney General, ruled that the government cannot restrict the right to protest. The right of protest would be done within social distancing and wearing masks, but the right to protest has been kept all time long. Another reason for the success you were asking me is the deploy of Israeli HMOs, the health clinic. Israel, by law, provides health security to all its citizens. And there are clinics all over the country. So once the government got the vaccination, the clinics started providing the vaccines to the population. And this was, and the health services, the public health services in Israel proved how efficient they are, and more important than that, how necessary they are. If in the past the governments cut the budget for public service, I think no government in the future, at least in Israel, and I hope in other countries, would not jeopardize the foundations of public health.
This period, Israel and Greece are cooperating with the medicine formula. How that is proceeding?
Throughout the year plus, we had very good contacts between the health services of the two countries. Minister Kikilias was very forthcoming in sharing information and asking for information. Unfortunately, we could not have helped you at the time with certain things necessary because the Israeli needs came, unfortunately, first. But in recent months, especially after the last visit of Prime Minister Mitsotakis to Israel, February 8, if I'm not wrong, we established a contact between your chief epidemiologist, Professor Sotiris, and Professor Arber of the Ichilov Hospital. He has been here a week and a half ago, and we are expecting soon that two hospitals in Greece will participate in the clinical trials of a medicine which I hope will save life. It's supposed to save life. It will be administered to patients in certain conditions. You would inhale it for 5 minutes for 5 days, and recovery is promised. It has been experimented in Israel. It has been tried. It is now phase 3 of the clinical trials. If it is successful, there may be an important remedy. There is another effort. It's an initiative of Prime Minister Netanyahu to open in Israel a center for vaccination. We need to learn the lesson of this pandemic. We need to learn the lesson of the impact of this pandemic on our daily life, on the economic life, and the national strengths of our countries. So Prime Minister Netanyahu initiated, together with other prime ministers, Austrian Kurz and the Danish, to open in Israel a research center and an assembly line or a factory line, production line for vaccination. So in the case or in case of another pandemic or mutation, variation, which will need adaptation of the vaccine, we can produce it in Israel and market it to other countries in the region.
That vaccination center attends to the Middle East area or the whole world?
First is the area. It's the region. It's the Middle Eastern region. If the production is such that it can respond to needs from far away, no reason why not. But this is one of the lessons we need to learn from this pandemic. The need to respond, and the need to respond fast. We have been lucky. 100 years ago with the Spanish flu, we were not so lucky. This time we were lucky, but still millions of people lost their lives. We need to preempt such occurrence in the future by being prepared.
What are the effects of the pandemic crisis to the public finances?
It has been a difficult year for some people. It has been a difficult year for the private sector. It has been a very difficult period for the entertainment sector. Just imagine that there were no concerts, no cultural events for more than a year. The government subsidized and helped. Some would say not enough. Some would say it is enough. It's open for argument. It had a certain tool on life in general. But it is amazing, and it's important to mention it in this interview as a lesson for Greece, something you can learn from us as you are opening the country very fast, and you're opening to tourism May 15th. Once the country was open a month ago, I was there in Israel on a visit, on a work visit. You cannot imagine the outpouring of people to the streets, to bars, to coffee prices. The prices went up. I was personally shocked. But prices went up, people went out, people felt that this is an opportunity they need to grab and come back to life. And when you see the economic figures, the time has been forgotten. The restriction time is history. People immediately got back to the past experiences or routine. So for all of those who were at the time worrying about the consequences of Corona and how it's going to scar ourselves, it seems that there is something stronger in us, and this is normality. Coming back to normality has been very fast in Israel.
So,
maybe too fast.
maybe too fast.
Because we still need to be very cautious, and we still need to be very careful. In Israel now, outdoors, you are not supposed to wear a mask.
So how are things now in Israel? Not the first period.
Life is back to normal. Totally back to normal.
So you got your routine.
Freedom of travel, freedom of assembly, freedom of going places, no major restrictions, and so far we are lucky. I would advise myself and whoever is willing to listen to still be careful, because this pandemic came to us as a surprise. Maybe it would leave us as a surprise, but if it's still there, we have to be careful.
So Israeli people will come to Greece this summer?
Israeli people are already in Greece. Israeli people were coming throughout the last year. Last summer,
You're traveling earlier than
we were being the first to travel to Greece. Minister Teoharis and the government opened Greece to Israeli tourists when the country was still closed to vaccinated people. As of, I think, March 22nd, we see numbers of people coming. Flights are full. There would be 190 flights a week, I think, to Greece. I may be wrong with the numbers. I have to double-check the numbers, but there are flights to Greece. The flights are full. People are looking forward to the opportunity to visit either the mountains from Epiros to Meteora or the islands. There are direct flights, and it's going to be a busy season.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador. Ευχαριστούμε. Καλή συνέχεια στις επόμενες συνεδρίες του Delphi Forum.